Welcome to the Ken Van Liew Show. Ken Van Liew here, CEO of Global Real Estate Strategies and best-selling author of The Modern Wealth Building Formula. On this show, we talk about anything from raising money to building an extraordinary life, because the Modern Wealth Formula applies to real estate, business, and money. And from that, we create an extraordinary life. So if you have not subscribed to this podcast, please subscribe below and check it out every week, because we have extraordinary guests talking about building modern wealth in your life. Let's go to the show. We have a Louisville slugger here today, Sharon Vornholt, and founder of Innovative Property Solutions, and also the founder of the Louisville Gals blog, and started real estate in 1998. Had a company, home inspection, that wasn't the greatest thing, going to work every day. I think we chatted about. And growing up with a dad as a GC, you found the passion of real estate. So Sharon, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it. And tell us a little bit about your real estate passion and strategies and probate courses. Got a lot to unwrap today.
Well, thank you, Ken, for having me. It's funny, we were chatting before we started recording about what you bring from your childhood. And my childhood, my dad was a contractor, a small business person. And being the oldest of four and the most well-behaved of the four, I got dragged along on the job sites. And that's really where I started my love of construction and that, that smell of the wood. And I didn't realize that, though, till many years later. At the time, it was just kind of annoying, and I knew I got to go out to lunch. But yes, I had a home inspection business for 17 years, worked in the medical field before that. And just when I was in the home inspection business, I was in there about 7 or 8 years when a realtor came in and said, "Do you want to go to a REIA meeting?" And I said something like, "What's a REIA meeting?" Because I only knew that you could be a real estate agent. I knew nothing about investing. So that was back, that's just really going to date me here, 1998. I went to my first real estate investors meeting, and I was just hooked after that.
Wow. So in 1998, I know you actually, I remember reading about you, because you said you've kind of fell into the wholesaling business. So so you go to this REI meeting, and you want to share a little bit about what your takeaway was when you walked out of there? Or?
Well, I knew that I had found a new path. I knew that. I just didn't know exactly how it was going to fit together with my other business. So I worked part-time as a real estate investor for 10 years. And I started out as a buy and hold landlord and primarily a fix and flip person. So I love the whole back to the construction. I love that aspect of it. But in 2008, I suddenly found myself with a couple of houses, and I knew some things to be true. One was that retail buyers were having a horrible time getting a mortgage. You just almost couldn't get a mortgage in those days, if you remember. And I didn't want to rehab a house, using other people's money, which I was paying interest on, and have those properties sit for God knows how long. I had no idea how long they would sit. So I just kind of flipped on a dime. And I had been in this business, Ken, all those years, and I had never done a single wholesale deal, ever. And I just called up some investors that I knew, because I had all those years of networking in my REIA group. So I just called them up and said, "Hey, I've got these properties. Would you like to buy them?" And they said, "Well, sure." Because what I knew about them was they also had W-2 jobs. So they were engineers. They had a booming real estate investing business, but they also had W-2 jobs. So they still didn't have a money problem yet. So, but that's how I got into wholesaling. It was just purely by accident.
Yeah, I can't think of any better experience, being on the job, probably pushing a broom. Your dad probably made you sweep a couple of days too, and having a home inspection. There wasn't anything that can sneak by on a fix and flip estimate for sure,
Well, I was the lowly owner. Now, let's be clear, I didn't crawl under anybody's house or get on anybody's roof. But being a woman in this very male-dominated business, it was my daughter and I. She was fresh out of college with 2 degrees, and she came to work with me. And we attended every training. We were in the early years, it was kind of the wild, wild west of home inspections. There was no licensing, no requirements. So we were very proactive in getting regulations in line for the protection of people. But I did have to, and since my inspectors were almost always men, I had to know what the men knew. Within, certainly I didn't know everything they knew, but I had to be able to pass the test. I had to know when they reported on something, what that was. So yes, it did give me an edge on looking at properties for sure.
And tell me, I know I've been reading that that grew not only into doing it on your own. If I'm not mistaken, you then developed programs around it, which then led to another, specialty in the probates, which, gives realtors more benefits with leads. And, there was all kinds of threads connecting at that point once you opened it up.
Right. And 2008 was an interesting year. That's when it hit Louisville, Kentucky. Now that I know some areas it was 2007, maybe 2009 for other areas, but 2008, that was the year I pivoted the business out of necessity, and I learned about probates quite by accident. And what I discovered was this very lucrative niche that nobody really knew about. Back in those days, if you're looking on the MLS even in a town with a population of 1 million, you've probably got 3,000 or 4,000 investors and realtors, agents looking at each property. Well, when they would show me letters they had gotten from people for off-market properties and specifically probates, there might be 1 or 5 or 6. That was your competition. Now, but I had no idea really how to do this. So I had to figure it out. And I did start the blog and the podcast. When I started those back in 2010 and 2013, I really just started those to kind of chronicle my journey. And as I was figuring things out, I would put those into the content I was creating. But I didn't create a course until about 4.5 years ago on probates because, well, I was just creating content. But then I looked up one day and I went, okay, there needs to be some organized fashion so that people understand that this is the most lucrative niche on the planet. Whether you are an agent, boy, God bless you if you're an agent and you're not in probate, you should be, because a great proportion of those properties will be listed. Now, there will be some that will be sold, a great many will be sold to investors. They'll be distressed properties, or they may be what I call time and circumstances situations, where the executor lives on the West Coast, and the property is in the middle of, like maybe it's in Kentucky or New York. And that person, because of their job or their business, they just go, look, I know I'm taking a hit on the price. I don't care. I do not have time. My time is more important to me doing what I do than to invest it, getting a little bit higher price for the house. But those are what I call them time and circumstances deals. But the curious thing about probates, Ken, is you may see a property. This is an actual property I looked at. Brick ranch, nice home on the outside. Everything looks good. The yard looks good. And you walk inside and you feel like you just walked into 1975 or before. It had orange shag carpet, metal cabinets. I mean, it had a new roof. It had windows. It had furnace. Everything else was just older than old. So you find a lot of properties that are just cosmetically challenged.
And no question about it. So what's your whole take on what's happening in today's world? I know I had to pivot, after COVID and kind of go from doing things in New York City to doing stuff outside of New York City because no one wanted to go there anymore for a little while. But, tell me a little bit about, how, you have all these benefits to give to realtors, in a tough market where, you hear stories, 30 realtors, one deal, residential is very competitive. Do you find yourself, training people more now, trying to really help the masses? Because I think leadership is key today. We need leadership. Where do you see yourself?
I think that's true. And my challenge is, we all had different challenges during COVID. So imagine this for a minute. With probates, every month, whether you are an agent or an investor, it's the cycle of life. People pass away. So every month, month over month, 12 months a year, there's a new group of probates every single month. Now, I am marked, and these are people, make no mistake, this is a legal process, and these people need our help. That's the mindset I have to overcome with investors and agents. You're not taking advantage of them or anything like that, and it's not weird to talk to these people. They're just people just like us. They have a problem. They have a property that's in probate that they have to sell in order to close the estate. If it's not been directly willed, or if it's a survivorship deed or something like that. But if it's just in the estate, it has to be sold. So when they come upon Uncle Harry's house, that's the one I just talked about with the metal cabinets and the bad carpet, and cosmetically it needs tens and tens of thousands of dollars worth of work, they just want to be done. They want to get on with their life. So here I am, though, in the middle of COVID. People are dying. What, 1 million people died, or however many died. I'm marketing a course called Probate Investing Simplified. Talk about a challenge that deals with buying property from people in estates that have passed away. I came to realize that I had to first fix my own mindset around that, as investors and agents said, oh, I can't reach out to these people now. So my course was a tough sell for a little bit of a while. But I had to first, in talking to people, I went, wait a minute, Sharon, your communication isn't right. You're not explaining this correctly, because this goes on even if there is no COVID. This problem still exists. So it's, as you and I know, it's all about the words. It's all about the copy. It's all about the way you explain how you can help these people.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a tough stretch, but then I had to realize that I kind of bought into their mindset, and I had to zap myself right out of that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine. Yeah, it's left an interesting perception on everybody, you know. They think that
Yes.
We all bite now, you know, and you know, something's in the space. You know, that's why I think,
Yeah.
you know, just touching upon, you know, leadership. I mean, that's a perfect example. You know, most people, as you've probably heard, as their emotions go up, their intelligence goes down. They're in a difficult situation. You know, they need someone to talk about. There's, you know, the qualitative part of it is enough to swallow, let alone the quantitative part of it, and trying to figure out, you know, what do we do? I just, you know, I haven't joined that club yet where my parents have passed, you know, but, you know, I know when my wife experienced it, you know, there was just a process that you can't rush sometimes. You just have to go through it. Like if there's a box of papers, you're only going to go through the box of papers so fast, you can't just throw it in the garbage, you know? You know, and people are so overwhelmed. You know, I think it's great that, you know, someone like yourself in leadership had to shift their mindset to really convey that, you know, to your client, you know, that you're here to help.
Yes, it's conveying it to the client, but they already know if they've reached out to you, then they know what they want. If they're reaching out to you as an agent, they want to list their house. Most likely that's what they want. And if they've reached out to you as an investor, these people with the internet today, they're not stupid. They research things before they dive in, unlike times before. So they know what their options are, and they are very clear on the direction they want to go in. So like you said, Ken, if someone passes away, the family might not open the estate for 6 months to a year. So when people say to me, it's, you know, it's all about how they feel around, and when the time is right. We'll say that when the time is right for them to open the estate. So people will say to me, when do you start marketing to these people? You know, do you find the date of death? And no, you don't do any of that. When they open the estate, they are raising their hand. They're saying, Ken, I'm ready to sell my house. By the very act of opening the estate, whenever that is, 3 months, 6 months, or a year afterwards, they have announced to the world that they are ready to move forward with the sale of the property. Now, what is most likely holding them back at that time is all the stuff in the house, all the stuff. So if you can say to them, and this is something I put in every contract, take what you want, you know, mementos, get your paperwork. If you want any furniture, whatever that looks like for you, take that and leave the rest, and we'll just take care of it for you. And then you put that in your contract. Of course, if you're an agent, you just hire someone. If you're an investor, you just hire someone, you know, to clean it out. Throwing away mom's favorite sofa that she loved that has no monetary value is a tough one. And you have to look at those things. It's a very uncomfortable thing to think you've got to trash out something that was so meaningful. You know, you can only keep so much.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because, you there's when someone has an estate sale, you think everything's going to be sold, but a lot of times at the end, there's a lot left. And, and that's the hard part. They come back and, they still got to get rid of more. But, it's funny because I think you're just summing it all up. It's such a sentimental time period for these people. And, and I wanted to kind of just shift gears a little bit because, what I want to do is help, my following and the listeners, on how this is really an advantage for wholesalers in a competitive market. And I believe that, I've heard you say and read that, this is a great lead generation source. And maybe you can lean into that a little bit and give us some insight to, are there notification, or, how does someone actually track this lead generation system? Do they literally have to go through the newspaper and look at the obituaries, or is it, how does it work?
Well, you don't want to look at the obituaries because remember when I said they have to open up the estate, you don't have the relevant information you need in an obituary. So I'd say, folks, don't do that. That's somebody's mama died or somebody close to them died. So let that pass by. And then there are in the U.S., Ken, over 3,300 counties. Each county has a different process. So you have to learn what the process is in your county, where the leads are found. Now, in my city, I thought it was horribly old-fashioned. It is that they're not online, but they are published in the newspaper once a month, all the probates that were opened. And it has the 4 pieces of information you need, the 4 pieces and the only 4 pieces: the name and address of the deceased and the name and address of the executor or administrator, whoever's the personal representative. That's all you need to work in probates. Now, you can Google your city and the plus sign and probates in your county, plus sign probates, and see if they're online. They're online in many areas. If you're in Chicago, Cook County, you Google Cook County plus probates, they're just right there online. Houston, all these places. So some places they're in the newspaper. Some you can buy leads, but by and large, I've found they're usually obituaries. Now, you can't buy the property until the probate's opened. So there's no getting there first in this case. The probate has to be open. So the way it works is someone passes away, the probate is opened. There's more to this, but there's either the executor's named in the will or the court appoints an administrator, jointly referred to as a personal representative. So once that all happens, the will is validated, all the stuff that they do in the court. Doesn't take very long, by the way. Then next in line is what the assets are sold. That's when you can buy the property. It's about in the middle of the straight line process. So learn where you can get the leads. So check Google, check online, check your newspaper. I called my probate court and said, how do you all publish these notifications? And they said they're in the paper, and they said once a month on this date. So that's how I found it. In some areas, God bless New Jersey, they're going to go to the courthouse and get those leads. And Fort Lauderdale, not every place that you would think would be online are they online. But I want you to look at that as an advantage. Guess what? Most people aren't going to do it.
Yeah.
So you can ask your title company. Sometimes the title companies can get those leads. Your closing attorney. So there are back-end ways. All these legal notices are published somewhere. You just have to figure out for your city where that is. And then the other thing you can check, and I don't think, to my knowledge, this is done in New York. Most all cities and states publish a notice to creditors. And that is to say, remember when I said that the executor or the personal representative is appointed, the assets are sold. The next thing that happens is the creditors are paid, and then the heirs get what's left. So the creditors are sitting below where everything is sold, but they should know that they can come collect their credit card bill or their car payment or whatever outstanding debts the deceased has. But I have a student that's in New York, and she told me that they do not publish the notice to creditors in the paper in New York. That is the only state that I've ever come across that doesn't publish them in the paper and tell you what time span you have to get your money. So, for instance, I was speaking up in Chicago, and I just, for the heck of it, Googled notice to creditors. in Chicago. It's published in the paper twice, and the creditors have 60 days to come forward and to put in their claim. And after that, they're out of luck. The heirs get that money. So look in your area, Google the notice to creditors and see where that's published, because that also gives you the information in most cases. All you need is that little bit of information, and you need the tenacity to go after it and to market to these people, and using direct mail. Don't call them, don't knock on their door. Trust me, they don't want to hear from you that way. But I will say this about probates. I've gotten more hugs at probate closings than any other kind of closings on the planet. They are so grateful that you can allow them to move on with their life by buying their property.
Got it. So yeah, you answered my question there, because I was going to say, is there any point in the sequence that you try to move in and negotiate, but they don't want to see you? So it's really through direct mail, and hopefully enough gravitational pull, I guess, for them to call you, right?
You will. Well, that's your first line of defense, is direct mail, and you should say, "This is how I can help you." And I know this might not be just the right time for you, so I'll reach out in about a month. And if you have any questions, here's how you can reach me. You want to have a very low-key marketing touch point, and you want to have your overriding message be, "I'll be here when you're ready to sell." So it's very low-key, and it's very, very effective. Now, when they do call you, then you do all the things that an agent or an investor does. You go look at the property. No, they're not going to tell you about their loved one's battle with whatever. They're not going to do that. At that point, they're focused on the property. Yeah. And all your job is simply to be a good listener. Yeah. If they want to tell you how their dad was a golfer, I tell people, look for visual clues to start the conversation. If you see golf clubs in the corner and you know that dad passed away, say, "Oh, was your dad the golfer?" Or cookbooks, "Was your mom the cook?" They might say yes, they might say no, but they're what I call conversation starters, and they get the ball moving. It's not a typical sales call like you might have with an agent. It's very organic and very easy.
Yeah, exactly. I think, it's a lot of patience, it sounds like, but the reward is beneficial.
They are by far the most profitable deals I ever did, probates.
Well, it's funny because I have a gentleman in our enterprise who was a financial advisor who transitioned, early on in the year, went in, did his first 2 deals, and then he started doing probates. Without having somebody like yourself, so, number one, I wanted to introduce you to my enterprise. But so would you be able to tell us a little bit about, if someone really wanted to get into, the 10 things, and points that you just made, is there a way that people can work with you one-on-one? I did see some stuff on your website where you have one-on-one programs, and and I think you have events. Like, what are you doing to spread the word and give the advantages to the masses?
With probates, I have a course called Probate Investing Simplified. I don't do private coaching on the front end for that, because you need to learn the basics. Yeah. I tell people you need to learn all the boring basics. You need to be able to speak a little bit of the language. You need to understand your mindset and theirs. You need to know how to market to them. And those are all things that I have in my course. But only, I'm really, really tight with this, because I release the modules in order. Like me, I'm the skip ahead person. Okay, I've got the first lesson. Let me go straight to the end. I'm that person. So I don't allow them to do that, because direct mail costs money. I want them to learn the steps and to come out as an expert. So, the modules are released sequentially. And then at the end, I have a marketing module where I teach them how to market to these people. And I give them mail merge ready letters, both for agents and for investors. So that, this is a niche that once you really understand how direct mail works. Do you do direct mail, Ken, at all?
I did in the past. And it's funny you ask, because I think it's a great question. because I've always been, I guess you'd say, a little bit more unorthodox in my finding,
Hmm.
back in my day, I'm giving away my age now, that we used to like actually look in the classified section of
Yeah,
the
yes.
paper and being an engineer that, was in this world, and you understand, and in the world of architects and engineers and going, hey, what's on the drawing board? What's going to
Yeah.
hit the drawing board? My actually first deal was found through an architect that introduced me for a dentist, to a dentist. Fast forward when I was in the fix and flip business and we used to go to auctions a lot, we had kind of all of our eggs in one basket where we were just going to auctions. And that's when we started dabbling a little bit with the direct mail, and we started to do the SEO and the internet and all that kind of stuff. Um, but I don't have a lot of experience with it, and I know a lot of people that have extreme success. They work with some of my friends that own, the data companies like RealFlow and
Mhm.
PropStream, and then they work with the companies with the direct mail. They're very, very successful, but I unfortunately don't have that much experience. That's why I'm reaching out to people like yourself.
Well, this direct mail is, I've always been, I said it was part laziness, part, I just didn't want to get in there and play in there with all those 4,000 people. I just wanted to go for the low hanging fruit. So I've always worked off market deals. That's just my thing. So that means you need to learn direct mail. Now, for direct mail, you can use postcards for most things. I do not recommend it for probates because I've had great success with the letter that I use. It's a white professional looking letter that's mail merged. It'll say "Dear Ken" or "Dear Mister," however, whatever's comfortable for you. But you send them out a mail piece. And my theory here is you mail everybody every month until as long as the house is available.
Mm.
Well, with probates, that's a kind of there's a timeline on that. Depending on whether it's a buyer's market or a seller's market, it's probably going to be 12, 15, 16 months.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be like a forever thing. So you mail everybody, every month, unless maybe there is no deal to be made. If these are deals that need to close with cash in almost all cases, or they need to close. So you're not going to be able to do fancy creative strategies in most cases, unless someone has already inherited the property. So you just need to understand this, and then you send out your direct mail. Now, you know about data companies. Now there are direct mail companies where you can upload your sequential letters. It'll just go out like magic. You just say, charge my card first of every month. They'll send it out for you. And each month, when you get your new group of people that need your help, then you upload that list to, you keep your list month by month, because you will want to kill yourself when it's time to scrub your list and you've got them all in one list. So, but it's a very automated process. Now, statistically speaking, 81% of your deals will come at or beyond your fifth mailing. Now, does that mean you won't get any deals till then? No. But it means, think about the cycle of probates we talked about. New group every month. In 5 months, it's going to be the fifth month for some group of people. That's when you really start to build up momentum and steady deal flow. And then realize that, so focus on that number, fifth mailing. So, as I said, you'll get deals before then, but that's when the momentum gets started. Now, 90% of your competition, statistically speaking, will quit on or before the third mailing.
Mm.
So, guess where that leaves you? You want to just be that 10% that's the last man standing. You're sending a very non-threatening letter. Hey, this is what I can do. This is what I can help you with when you're ready. And believe me, they will contact you through this approach when they're ready, because this is a very emotional time for them. All the other strategies, the let me get in there and be first, they just don't apply in probates. You need to be a good listener. This is also the part where you set yourself apart with your marketing and your branding. So marketing is how you get leads, but branding is why they choose you.
Right. Exactly.
So that's the other piece of the puzzle. They have to know, like, and trust you.
Yeah. No, that's huge. Yeah. I mean, my biggest takeaway is, it's professionalism. It's sensitivity, patience, a lot of the skills sets that most people don't have. So that if you can capture a couple of those, besides the little trick of the 5 mailings, and everybody dropping off at 3. And, I think this falls into kind of almost having a little bit of besides an intelligence, also an emotional intelligence related to the process, because you have to put yourself in their shoes,
Well, I would say this, Ken. You think you have to be maybe a special snowflake to work in probate. You really don't.
Got it.
You have to just be a good. You do have to be someone who takes a little bit of a step back and is not an aggressive real estate investor. But you really just have to convey to them that I'm here to find a solution that works for both of us. And it is somewhat in your demeanor, I think. But most people can't, they actually have that demeanor. I think they get uncomfortable thinking about the situation and how they're going to talk to these people. So that's where they get in trouble. So fix your mindset and realize that this is, I don't care if you're wholesaling, rehabbing, buy and hold landlord, this is the never-ending source of leads. And never ending. And if you can master this and add this to your existing business, guess what? You're going to make a lot of money.
That's perfect. I think that is a perfect highlight to ask, what's the best way for people to reach out for you so they can, just catapult off that last statement of, get this source in place and you can make a lot of money.
Well, they can go over to the blog, which has links off to the podcast and everything. So Louisville Gals Real Estate blog. Or if you have a question, you can email me at Sharon@SharonVornholt.com.
Sounds great. So Sharon, thank you so much for being with us. I'll just ask you one final question.
Sure.
It could be outside of real estate. If there's any words of wisdom you want to leave us with today, just what would you have to say?
Well, I think you just need to step outside of your comfort zone when it comes to real estate. I think all of us, I don't care where you are, we find ourselves in a space where we get in this comfort zone and it's easy. And if you're in the easy zone all the time, then you're not growing. So I would say do the thing that's hard for you and then do the next thing and then the next thing. And you'll look up one day and you'll have a whole lot less hard things.
Awesome. Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big hand. Sharon, that was awesome, man. Great show today. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm looking forward to being on your show.
I can't wait.
Make it a great day. My special guest, I want to thank you for listening today. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please take a moment. Subscribe to the Ken Van Liew Show. Put modern wealth in your life. Come next week. Keep coming. It's going to make a huge difference. I really want to thank you for listening. As always, make it a great day.